the Cinema Judge!
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Judge. To all my regulars, welcome back, and I hope my voice finds you well. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Now approach the bench today. We have another movie in the Conjuring universe. It's the Nun II. Now here's the tag. 1956 France. A priest is murdered. An evil is spreading. The sequel to the worldwide smash hit follows Sister Irene as she once again comes face to face with Valak, the demon nun. Here's the trailer.
There's something wrong with the school. Something doesn't feel right.
Sophie, what happened?
I think there's something here that's not meant to be.
What did you see?
I saw a nun. What did she do? She's standing there.
This thing, it's come back for me.
This demon was once an angel. Rejected by God. Stripped of power.
It wants that power back. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too.
You send that thing back to hell.
Well, I think that just might set a tone. If you're unfamiliar or wondering what it might feel like, that's the tone of the Nun II. Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, Michael Chaves. And he's going to talk a little bit more about the story and a little bit more elements behind it all. And I just love these kind of interviews when you get to hear from the director and you get to delve a little bit more into the thought process, other concepts that he wanted to bring into it. Here he is.
Well, if you're going to shoot in France in a boarding school, you got to have some French mean girls. I think that that's just essential. I think there's like a requirement somewhere. We have a couple. We have basically a little clique, and that is they terrorize one of the new students. This girl Sophie, who's played by Caitlin Rose Downey, and they are they're the insiders of the school. They know all the dark secrets, and they're both teasing Sophie, but then kind of trying to kind of rope her into to their little games. And the kind of the games that they play are tied into the history of the school. There's definitely, the school has a lot of dark history, and they are semi-aware of it, not entirely aware of it. They have their own interpretation of it, and we get to see how that becomes a central part of the film.
It is simply amazing how this franchise has just grown and grown. The whole Conjuring universe, all from James Wan. I mean, the guy is an incredible director, fantastic writer, and just overall just completely awesome. Look at what he's done. Who would ever think that a movie from The Conjuring would have all these different storylines and backstories? It's incredible, the world that he's created. Now, in this particular episode, we're going to hear interviews that you don't always hear from. We're going to hear from the production design people. We're going to hear from the visual effects people. And I just love having them having their voice. Because so often, you don't get to hear from them, the people who make these effects believable. Because there's one thing to have it written on page, but it has to have practicality. It has to look good. And you're going to hear in these future interviews, they talk about they wanted to use practical in-camera effects, meaning stuff that you could physically touch, not just, okay, we're going to do it in post. We're going to throw down CGI and we'll fix everything. As much as they could in this movie, they try to use real events, real effects in front of us. So it's not, oh, that looks really lame. But, budgets are sometimes cut or things have to be enhanced for certain reasons because they can't do certain stuff. And a lot of times when you do practical effects, it might take a lot more time. But people like me, and maybe you, being a complete movie geek, nerd, whatever you want to call it, historian. Well, I won't say historian. I'm far from anything of that. But you gather what I'm saying here. We love to hear this kind of stuff, and we love to know that it was done in real time. And that's what's so great about these kind of movies sometimes. Look, even if you're not into horror, if you look beyond that and just watch the visuals and see how did they do this and how did they make it happen. A lot of times for me, that is just half the fun of watching a movie. Because, again, so often they can just CGI it later. And those people do a great job. I am in no way downgrading what they do. It's just fun to have in-camera effects. So first, we're going to hear from Sophie Leclerc. She's a visual effects supervisor. And she talks about how she's never worked on a horror film before and how much she really enjoyed this. And that's just so cool to be like, you have this opportunity put in front of you and say, I've never done this before. Let me give this a shot and let me see how I could do this. And then we're going to hear from Stefan Crescend, and he's a production design guy. And also, he had never worked in a horror film before. So having a fresh face, a fresh view of a movie, I think is really kind of nice. Because sometimes if you have somebody who's done it over and over and over again, they might fall into old habits, cliches, not thinking outside the box. And not that they can't. But for me, it's exciting to know that some of these people, the first time they've done a horror film, and you know they want to do a good job, they have a lot to live up to. Because this is a massive franchise. And you don't want to be the one who screws it up. So I think there's a lot more focus for them thinking, I know what I have to do. I need to raise the bar. And they talk about that. And then we're going to go back to Sophie. And she talks about the first meeting with the director. And him telling her what he's looking for. And then she's giving him ideas. I would love to see those kind of meetings. First time these people meet together. What do they talk about? How does it go? I think for me, that kind of behind the scenes stuff would be priceless. And then we go back to the production designer, and he talks about the same thing about meeting with the director. I eat this stuff up.
So basically, when I first read the script, number one, in 25 years, I've never worked on a horror movie. So I thought it was fantastic, a great opportunity for me to work on a horror movie. And I loved the script. And there was a striking line in that script. It's nuns do all the work and priests get all the credits. So since I read that line, I wanted to do it.
The first thing is I think we can do really great things with this script. And I had already lots of images of the atmosphere. And it was easy. For me, it was really not something easy, but I had when I was reading it, I had all the images and all the cool things that we could do. I knew the Conjuring movies. And I was really interested in doing a horror movie. I've never worked on a horror movie, and really, I'd been a fan of horror movies when I was 20, and this is something really that was missing to my career.
So I met with Michael for the first time in Paris, and I must say Michael wants to shoot as practical as possible. It's not that he doesn't like visual effects. I think he knows a lot about visual effects. But he doesn't want to waste time when he's on the shoot with too many procedures of visual effects. And basically, I understand what he wanted. I think it's the essence of that movie that needs to be done that way, and also the willing of a director who is really strongly believing in everything in camera and the visual effects to be a little bit more seamless, even though he loves it. He loves visual effects and he's very much collaborative with us. The Demon Goat is an amazing character. It's completely original. It's been built first there was a lot of design, and I think Michael Chaves had a pretty good idea about what he wanted. I think he got the help of some graphic designer also for the creature. And then it was done by makeup effects, who are a group of extremely talented people in this movie. And we are going to only create some CG part and help that creature.
I think I remember all my conversation with Michael from the beginning. And it was mostly about the atmosphere, mostly about also what we could find in France, about all the beautiful architecture. And what I remember the most is really his energy from the beginning. And you know that the script has evolved.
Now, we all know when you're making a movie, there are so many moving parts, so many departments, everything that's going on in a film. In one department that often I think we overlook or we take for granted, unless it's a period piece where there's flamboyant outfits or whatever. But costume design is one of those ones that it enhances a character. It tells you what they're feeling, and so many layers goes into how a character feels, who they are, and how they move themselves based on what they wear. I've read so many interviews and I've heard actors say, I didn't get this role I didn't know this character until I put on this particular outfit. Because once that happened, it all clicked. And that's what's so wonderful to hear, that a character can do that. An outfit can do that. Because you could read the lines all day, every day. Yes, word for word. But unless you feel like that particular person, like you're walking in their skin, you truly can't do the job that you are meant to do. So we're going to hear from the costume designer in here, Jonas Bloquet. And I just love all these French individuals talking. You don't hear this a lot. So in interviews, so I'm like this, I'm just gobbling all this stuff up. Just hearing these French accents explain their passion for a movie. Maybe it's just me. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's just awesome. But she really strips it down and explains that about when she met with the director, what that director wanted these characters to have and feel, and then her input too. And immediately after that, we're going to have a clip. Now, in this clip, if you remember at the beginning of these interviews, the director was talking about that whole Mean Girls thing. In this scene, a young girl is put into this room, and there's a stained glass window up there, like I think of a goat. And the people are saying, okay, no matter what you do, don't look away. Go in there and stare at that goat or whatever it is, and just do that. Well, anyway, this young girl gets freaked out. She opens up the door so it's barreling back to, get out of there. And then she stops and there's a statue, but then, bam, she sees the face of the nun. But then the statue falls down and then they open the door. Check it out.
I got involved in this project after an intense meeting with Michael Chaves in last March. And we shared together lots of a vision, a point of view. We share a lot of creative points. It was really a stunning moment of creation and dialogue together. It's so marvelous to work with Michael because he's so creative, and we really not far away from our estimation in this vision of the movie. So I proposed to Michael something, a travel code, for example, for the nuns, and he liked so much these travel codes because they bring a drama to the character. This is really creative to to work on the Nun II, because each character has a lot to say, and I try to explain their background in their outfits.
What are we doing here?
Playing a game. It's called Defy the Devil.
Whatever you do, whatever you hear, don't look away.
See? All that kind of stuff. All those little suspense stuff that makes horror so perfect. Now, coming up next, you might be asking yourself, what happened at the end of Nun 1? And what's going on? What's more about this story? Fear not. I have that for you. Because coming up next, we're going to hear the director. And he's going to talk about where the Nun 1 left off, in case you forgot. Or maybe you don't want to watch the first one, you just want to watch this one. There you go. He kind of sums that up. But then he also talks about how it ended, like I said, and how a certain character, Maurice, was perhaps possessed. And then he talks about that a little bit. But then we go to the guy who plays Maurice / Frenchie, because he kind of plays, you'll see what I'm saying. But his name is Jonas Bloquet. He's the guy that plays Maurice, whom the director's talking about. And what he talks about is the story, his character, but also within this interview, which I love, and it's so nice and refreshing to hear, he is one who needs saving. He's not saving anybody, because that trope has been played over and over and over and over again. The same old cliche usually is, some guy saves some damsel in distress. He's the damsel in distress this time around, and I admire this guy for taking that role and going, you know what? I'm going to play this because it doesn't get done a lot. That takes some really good confidence in yourself to take on a role that most people might not take because they just don't want to. So I love that interview when you hear from Jonas Bloquet. But first, the director.
At the end of the first Nun, we think that Valak has been defeated. Unfortunately, we get a tease that this kind of terrible revelation that Valak lives, and Valak has escaped within Maurice, that Maurice is possessed and working as a vessel. But Maurice doesn't know this, and he's been traveling from Romania across Europe. And over these past 5 years, there's been a series of these unexplained murders. And they all kind of like follow the path that Maurice has been on. And Maurice, we find Maurice in this film, looks like he settled down in a boarding school in the south of France. And if you didn't see the previous movie, you would have assumed that everything was all right, and he was going to be living a wonderful, peaceful life. He had a friendship with one of the young little girls there, and then also a flirtation with one of the teachers. So it seems like it could have been a perfect life for him, but we know that something dreadful is just around the corner.
In the Nun 1, we know Frenchie as a friendly, charming guy, and I think he evolved a lot in the Nun 2. Well, there's 5 years that went through. He's been possessed, but he's also more mature. We know a little bit more about his background also. And so I would say he's more mature, more evolved, more less childish, and more, a little bit more like an adult. So it's 5 years later. We're in the south of France, in Aix-en-Provence, actually, and he's working in a boarding school for girls only, for young girls, and he's working there as the maintenance guy. He still doesn't know that he's infected, that he's possessed by Valak. So he's kind of in a weird state where he feels sick. He has some kind of epileptic episodes, but he doesn't know about it. And he's trying to just move forward with his life. He actually met someone. Her name is Kate. And I think he's really into her. Those two parts of Maurice, the nice Frenchie, as we know him, and the new, tormented, scary Maurice, was actually my whole challenge for the sequel. It was the most exciting part of this. I mean, for me, was trying to find the right balance between the two of them, and it was really the prep work. And now I'm just trying to do that in front of the camera, and I hope it works. I'm the only male lead in the movie, and I'm surrounded by 4 women, very different from each other, and they're all trying to save me. So I'm the damsel in distress. I'm the squire in distress, and I love it. I think we're all tired of the Prince Charming saving the princess. But the best thing I'd say that working with young actors like them is to see the joy and the excitement in their face when they're working on a set. It reminds me of how much I love my job, and I love acting, and how lucky I am.
Well said, in my humble opinion. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that was well done. Now, we've heard about the visual effects. We've heard about the costumes, production design. Next, we're going to hear about the really, really important part of any movie, location and sets. This movie takes place in France. The history there, just all that's involved with France and the history, it's just enticing to me. And I think that's why another reason they shot it there. So we're going to hear from the director talking about that, talking about France and everything that encompasses. And then we're going to hear from the visual effects producer. And she also talks about that, how helpful that is to create a universe and a feel to a movie. And then we're going to hear from Jonas Bloquet. And he also delves into when they shot inside the school and how that just changes everything, claustrophobic. And all these young girls are in there, and he's the only guy. But he's surrounded by all these people, but you're just stuck. You're trapped inside. And that just must enhance, if you're an actor, being able to, you can just feel it. You don't have to stretch to try to think of what's my surroundings, what am I looking at here? Okay, here's a tennis ball in front of me. What is that? When you're on a set like that, I think that just enhances everything around you. And then we're going to go back to the director, and he's going to talk about where Irene is today. Because in the first movie, she went through a lot. She thought it was all well and good. So she devotes herself to being a nun. And that's where she thinks, okay, I'm just going to live my life, be this kind of person, all will be well. Well, obviously, things aren't well. But then we're going to have a clip for you. And in this clip, Irene is called to see a bunch of priests. And they tell her, well, in a nutshell, they sound a lot more elegant when they say this, but they're pretty much saying, the beast is back, and you have to go find it. And she's like, what? I'm not doing that. I mean, I try to put myself in that position. They go, okay, yeah, there's this evil beast out there, and well, we're going to sit back here and let you take care of everything. I'd be like, nah, ooh, look at the time. I really have to go. But anyway, so that's what happens coming up.
I think that there was a great opportunity to shoot in France in a number of different respects. I think, first of all, just pivoting off of Frenchie, Maurice's character in the first one, there was this kind of great reversal between the two films. The first one being that, he was a Frenchman in Romania, this fish out of water. So I think that in the earliest draft with Akela, we really liked the idea of just turning things on their head in this film, where he wouldn't be a fish out of water. He would actually, he would be, in his homeland, or at least in France. He's French Canadian, but France was the closest spot from Romania, and then the idea that he could actually find someone who was not from France. That he befriends Anna, he befriends Kate, who's played by Anna Popplewell. Who her and her daughter are Irish, and they've They've come from Ireland and are now living in France, and they're the outsiders in this country. So I thought there was a great opportunity there. Beyond that, France has so much great history. It has so much great cinematic history. I'm a huge fan of Diabolique, which is just like, classic French film set in a French boarding school. There's actually a lot of little nods to that movie in this one. That I'll let people discover. I won't call them all out. But I think that there was there's such a great history in France, and just presented just such a great opportunity.
I think also the location and the French locations and landscape are obviously perfect and tailored for this project. We found this amazing location in Aix-en-Provence, at Couvent-des-Prêcheurs, where we shot for 7 weeks, and with, of course, a lot of help from the production design department and art decoration and set decoration. They did an incredible job, and we are really enhancing and helping.
Aix-en-Provence is a very old city and very old buildings as well, and we don't have much to do to recreate the 1950s in Aix-en-Provence, so it was a great location all along, and I think it's great to put that in here. And I think Aix-en-Provence also, as a city of the south of France, has a lot of history itself. For me, it's kind of like a behind closed door setting, because all of the action is inside that school, and it feels very close to the outside world. And I think it's a brilliant move to set the whole scene, like the whole horror in that school with innocent girls, because what would happen to those innocent girls if Valak was unleashed?
In the Nun II, we find Sister Irene basically living the quiet life. She had her adventure in the first film, and she thinks that chapter is closed. And she's in the last film, she's committed herself to a life of a nun, and this is it in practice. She is in a convent in Italy and living a life of service, a very quiet, humble life. And I thought there was something really captivating about that. I think the idea of someone who went on this incredible adventure and then wants to live this quiet life. That's kind of reminds me of stories that I love, that almost like Unforgiven, or even the first Rambo, where you have these extraordinary people who are now living these kind of anonymous lives. But the legend of the previous movie is kind of chased her down, and the legend of this demon nun, and also the nun that defeated her, has circulated as kind of folklore around the different convents. And so even though they don't know it's her, she's kind of the legends chasing her.
Sister Irene?
Your Eminence.
There has been an incident. A series of them.
It's moving west across Europe, but its origins point to Romania.
It can't be.
The demon lives.
Have you spoken to Father Burke?
Father Burke is dead.
How?
Cholera.
You are the only person alive who has dealt with something like this. The Church would like you to investigate. Find out what it wants and where it's going next.
No.
I'm sorry.
I can't do it.
Can't or won't?
You don't know what happened at St. Carta. I was lucky to make it out alive.
You're right, I don't know what you faced back there. But in that abbey, sister, you performed a miracle. The Church needs another.
See, what would you guys do if you walked up to your boss and they told you to do this? And I get it, we often deal with situations similar to this, but on a much smaller scale, usually not meaning it could end you. But I think we all could relate to the very stripped down version of, you do this and I'll be sitting here at my desk. Now you might be asking yourself, what should I expect when I see this film? Well, I'll tell you what. We have the costume designer, the visual effects producer, and the production designer. They're going to say what they feel you're going to get out of this film.
It's really universal. The horror movie or the supernatural are universal. If you can get inside the story and and feeling, what the nun feel during their travel, during the fight with Valak. You did the great. You do the great job. You did the great job. You got it. It's entertainment, so I hope they will feel the same as me when I read the script. I was so in the time of horror. I do the journey with the girls, with Irene and Deborah. I have some tender moments with Maurice and Kate. So I love entertainment. So it's really an entertainment movie for me, really. And I'm such a good public. So usually when I do creation like I am a part of the audience.
Well, I really hope they get a good scare. I think people go see a horror movie to be scared, like when we were 5 years old and we were reading, very scary stories, and we loved our parents to tell us scary stories. So I think you'll enjoy it. You'll go see a good, scary, interesting movie with amazing surprises in it.
I think the audience can expect really authentic sets and really things that exist. So we are not only on stage sets. You have a part of the scary atmosphere that is brought by histories and history and centuries of real buildings.
Now, this is the deal about horror films, in my opinion. They can cover so many topics, teach you things without you even knowing you're being taught something. It's a hard line to walk sometimes because you don't want something so heavy-handed where you're like, okay, come on, quit the preaching. But if you're a skilled filmmaker, like this guy is and so many others, there's so many things that can be said in a horror film. And that's the magic of horror genre. And I get it. It's not for everybody, because a lot of people don't like to be scared. If crafted properly, so much can be done inside of a horror story. And it takes a keen director to get that just right, walk that line. And Jonas Bloquet talks about that coming up next. He talks about the director and how great it was to work with him. And then he also talks a little bit more about his character and so much more. So I'm not going to get in the way. I'm just going to let him go. And then we'll finally hear from the director saying what he thinks we'll take out of this film.
Michael is a great director. I think he's very efficient. We do a lot in one day. He knows what he wants. And that's very cool for an actor because you just go straight forward. And he's also very listening, like he welcomes any ideas, good or bad. And it makes me feel good because I like to be involved in the creative process. I think the nun, like the figure of a nun, like religion is very... Because religion, we cannot figure out what's real, what's not. Like, we do believe in it or we don't, but it's still very enigmatic. So we can't put a reality on religion. And to put a scary face and to put a scary character on religion is very, like, because it feels very realistic as well and very close to us. Like, we've lived with this Catholic religion all of our lives, and I think people are scared of it a little bit. With the Nun II, what Akilah Cooper managed to do is to feel very closer to the other characters as well. So I think that the whole movie will be a lot more emotional than maybe the first one, who was very like gothic, adventurous. This one is more intimate. Those horror genre movies, and this one particularly with the lighting, the sound, Valak and stuff, you need to see it in theaters. I mean, the whole experience of going to the theater is for this type of movies.
A great thrill ride, a great scary movie, a classic scary movie. I think that was one of the big things that I wanted with this, that it should just feel timeless. There should be something that is really classic about the film. It also needs to be ruthlessly scary. I think that's what audiences expect when they're coming to a Conjuring movie, and especially to a Nun movie. She's an icon of horror, and I'm really excited for people to see it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our in-depth look at The Nun 2. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any way to improve the show, always feel free to contact me, cinemajudge@hotmail.com. Or if you want to watch this live on demand whenever you want, go to bit.ly/cinemajudge, bit.ly/cinemajudge. And on there, you get to see these interviews and the clips. And here's a bonus for you. You don't see or hear me at all, because that's the joy of doing the TV version. It's all there in front of you. You don't need me to guide you through it. And that is what some people like. They don't want to be interrupted in between interviews. So if you want that, check that out. And again, it's available on demand whenever you want. Not forever. It doesn't last for years, but it will be there for several months. So if you get this early and you want to watch it, it's there for you. But I really, really want your feedback, because I can't grow if I don't know. So contact me. I'm on most platforms. And also Instagram, The Cinema Judge. I'm on Threads. I'm on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube ever, I'm there too. So please feel free to comment. Just look up The Cinema Judge, and you'll see a whole bunch of shows there too. I'm on Pinterest, Tumblr, Hive, Mastodon, Hive, TikTok, and the Metaverse. If you ever go to the Metaverse, go to Horizon Worlds. There's a whole bunch of creators out there who create their own worlds, and they do amazing things. One of the places I often go to is Ace of Clubs, Laser Tag, because Mikey Ace, he makes several worlds, and it's just a blast to go to. So if you ever go to the Meta World and you look up Horizon Worlds, and within that one, there's thousands of worlds that people create, and you could too if you wanted to. But coming up next is one of my favorite parts of the show. It's where I thank you, the listeners, for listening to this show. And this one's always just for the last episode. So if you listened to the last episode, this is for you, because this is just so wonderful to share. Because a lot of you listen to it, it might be 2 days from now, it might be 2 years from now, it doesn't matter. Or you might listen to it when you're sitting at home, driving your car, at work, on your break. I just love hearing about it no matter how you do. Because that's what this is all about, guys. I'm not here to yell at Hollywood, complain, cry, tell you not to see a movie. That's not our jam here. All we want to do is this. I'm the judge. I put it together like one giant infomercial. I present you, the jury, with the evidence. You make up your own mind. We've all walked different paths. Who am I to tell you to see one or not to see one? I might say I like it, but I would never in a million years tell you not to see something. Because we all walk different paths. Because we all want the same thing. An enjoyable movie experience. It's that simple. Because it's noisy out there, I want to create a little cocoon, a little safe haven where you can learn about a movie without anybody yelling at you. Consider this to be a movie oasis. That's the best way I can put it. Because I just want you to know about a movie. Because there's sometimes you know about a movie. You're like, yeah, I've heard everything about it. But every once in a while, there's one of those movies where you have never heard about it, or you want to hear more about it. That's what we try to do for you. Give you all the details that we could possibly give you. So wherever, whenever, or whatever you're doing, this is for you. To all my listeners around the world, and this is really mind-blowing to me, everybody who's sharing this with your friends, family, whatever you're doing, I can't thank you enough. From the United States, Germany, you guys are awesome. Whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. I love it, and I'm so grateful to you. Same thing with Canada, Mexico, Australia, Poland, the Netherlands, just to name a few. Every solitary one of you, thanks for listening, or else however you listen. Even if you don't listen here, if you listen on YouTube or whatever you do, thank you so very much. From Minneapolis, Minnesota, Valencia, California. Is it Schuwalde, Brandenburg? Bergen, Zoom, North Brabant? Man, I'm so sorry, guys. North Rhine, Westphalia. Frankfurt am Main, Hesse, BYD, GOS, ZCZ, KUJ, AWKO, dash, POMORSKIE. Amazing, thank you. Inver Heights, Minnesota, always steady eddies, and I really appreciate that. Same thing with Holly, Minnesota, Stillwater, Minnesota, Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much, Nevada. Perth, Western Australia, Galahari Jalisco. Is that right, guys? Maple Grove, Minnesota. Same thing with you, Maple Grove. Thank you so very much. Brampton, Ontario. Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you so much, Phoenix. In St. Paul, Minnesota, just to name a few. But to every solitary one of you, you take time out of your busy life to come here to listen to this show. Thank you. Every time I see somebody listen, and this is no joke, I might look through, I'm having a bad day. I look on my little device here and I'm like, yes, somebody else listened. Without fail, I will do some kind of happy dance. Is it pretty? Of course not. But I do a happy dance because I am so incredibly grateful. But now it's time for the bourbon shout out. This week it goes out to Carter and Fadula. You guys today went there. You made the day so much better because that whole event of going to the doctor could be annoying, scary, all these things. You guys just brightened up the room. So to Carter and Fadula, I truly, truly, truly thank you and cheers. And as I said earlier, this is a TV show before it's a podcast. So what I do, the studios, they send me the videos, interviews, and all those kind of things. Oh, and a real quick shout out to the company that sends these to me often. I kept messing up the video. I kept having problems because it's me. I called them, I emailed them up. They handled everything just so perfectly. And again, it was all on my end, but they just, whatever they did, thank you to them. So tip the cap to you. But most of you know this is a TV show. I sit down, I crank tunes. I don't have to worry about talking or anything because it's all video. And that's my happy place. Movies and music. I just slip away, jam, and I'm all good. So this week, I was, like, okay, what can I do? It's a horror film. What should I do? So I kind of went into a little bit of 80s hair band kind of deal. I did a little Ronnie James Dio because, well, he has that mystic, all these other things going on in the song, and not scary, but he just has that. I did a little Alice Cooper because of his whole image. It kind of gets you in the mood for kind of like a horror film. But then I moved on. I played a little Cinderella because, hey, come on, Cinderella, they have some trophy songs. Same thing with Poison. I was in the mood. I was in that era. So I said, okay, boom, I'm going to throw down Poison's greatest hits. And then I still wasn't done. So I threw down a little Def Leppard. And of course, you can't go wrong with Def Leppard. If you've never listened to these bands, give them a go. Because, or if you haven't listened to them in a while, give them a revisit. All the memories that they provided during the 80s is just top notch. What more do you need? Well, that is it. My glass awaits. I'm thirsty. So cheers to you and to the movies. So until next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.